Hello, welcome to another Funny Philosophies video where I'm going to be talking about philosophy in a interesting and also occasionally funny way, hopefully. And I kind of riff and do this all off the top of my head, so I don't really do any prep for it, so expect unexpected things and occasional moments of boredom. So today I'm going to be talking about something which is very close to my heart, actually, in fact, at present, because it is something I'm working through, which is nihilism, which I've already talked before about, but what I want to talk about is nihilism's older, bigger, more mature brother, existentialism. So it's just to define nihilism. Nihilism is a belief in philosophy that there's no inherent meaning to anything. It's instinctively, it's quite a destructive, not creative form. There can be more creative forms of nihilism which don't seek to reduce everything down to this has no meaning. But essentially, the core tenet of nihilism is a belief in nothing having inherent value. So, prior to nihilism being around as an idea in philosophy, there was the accepted belief that there were institutions which provided a moral framework for everybody. So that would be mostly coming from religion, predominantly from religion, but also culturally as well. From our cultures just spring up naturally a kind of code of ethics, I guess, essentially. Usually based on logic. A lot of it roots back to the Greeks. Then old big mustachio Mr. Pringles can came along, Nietzsche, and said that but what if there is no inherent value to everything? What if morality... I'll get his book, Beyond Good and Evil, now. I've got one up here. I've got this book somewhere as well. So obviously Nietzsche wrote a lot, but in Beyond Good and Evil, Nietzsche talked about how morality was... morality is basically created by a society to control individuals, basically, would be his idea. He talks a lot about the last man philosophy, which is the Christian morality, basically. So the Christian morality is the slave morality. These are the terms that he uses in the book. He calls them slaves. So slave morality, a slave, they have a insistence on duty, on caring for others, charity and such. And then he compares this with what he calls master morality, which is a self-created morality. So this is basically a morality of treat people how they deserve to be treated, essentially, would be how I would kind of think of it, or how I understand the idea. So it's not saying that you should just be some kind of good. You shouldn't just extol purely virtuous Christian moralities, but you should, if someone has been extremely destructive towards you, then you should mirror their destruction back to them and then enhance it in a way. It's a kind of idea, the idea of the chaotic spirit, the chaotic free spirit of reality, who the Übermensch as well, which is another idea in Nietzsche's philosophy. And I'm talking about Nietzsche because Nietzsche is essentially the roots of existentialism, because he was the first one to start asking those questions of meaning. The existentialists essentially came up with a response to his question, and Nietzsche came up with his own version as well, and thus spoke Zarathustra. But it was the existentialists who really brought it into the 20th century and the 21st century, I guess. Let me see what books I've got here, which might be existential. I've got I've showed this book before, actually. It's here, isn't it? Camus. Camus was... he's not someone I've read a great deal of. I've read a bit. I've read this, but I've not read any of his fiction. If I can find where it is. Anyway, I think I've shown it before. It's The Myth of Zarathustra, which is about the man condemned to roll a boulder of eternity forever. So in this, he explores the question of the absurdity of existence and bringing in Nietzsche's question of the eternal return. Nietzsche's question of the eternal return was just a question of, what if you live the same life over and over again and there's no change in any of it? Would you be happy with the decisions you make? So it's again, once more, it's a challenge to the person reading to say, are you living your life as fully or as much as you'd like to? It's a philosophy of action. It's a philosophy of if you're not happy with something in your life, change it now, because you've only got now to change it. You haven't got tomorrow, you haven't got yesterday, you've got to do it now. So if you want to do something, do it. Would be which I guess kind of relates to the will to power idea of Nietzsche as well, which is the underdeveloped, like, last idea he had before his dead and insane kind of like descent into just absurdity, I guess, with his sister, and just madness basically. Which is never fun, I'd imagine. It's terrible how his life ended, actually. He ended up, well, there's Myth for Socials. There's Camus. Nice cover as well. All these nihilist and existentialist books have the greatest covers. Look at that. I mean, I know it's just a black square, but I just love something about that. And then look at that as well. Look at that. Look how awesome that is. The patterning on it. Oh, that's beautiful. Anyway, that's enough of me coming over books. What else have we got here? Oh, we've got more recent novels literature. Just a second. Look, just going to find neo-nihilism. Just a second. No. Just edit that bit out. I just read a book recently by a contemporary philosopher, Peter Stolstead, who has developed a lot of Schopenhauer. I think it's Schopenhauer, not a philosopher I'm familiar with, and Nietzsche's ideas into this world, and ties it in with psychedelics as well. I know I'm going off track a bit now. Existentialism. So let's just define what existentialism is in a nutshell. Existentialism, in a concrete nutshell, is a philosophy that puts the onus once more on yourself. So it's very much deeply related to the nihilism of Nietzsche. Where it differs is that how it provides an answer for that. So existentialism says you are the only person responsible for making yourself. You are the only person responsible for the decisions you make. You're the only person responsible for your actions and how the consequences those actions have. So you basically just have to be a thinking and aware individual, accept that you're going to make mistakes, and you have no idea of what the repercussions of those mistakes might be, and get on with it. Create your own meaning in life, and from having experiences and making mistakes. And a lot of it relates very closely to Nietzsche's saying, what doesn't kill me makes me stronger, I suppose, in a lot of ways. And the existentialists were deeply inspired by Nietzsche. Nietzsche was one of their idols in a way, I suppose, which is ironic considering Twilight of the Idols, but that is the truth of the matter. That was, all those kind of like angsty French guys were just all listening to this crazed German guy with a massive moustache who got lost on a hill and ended up getting syphilis and dying. It's not a way to go. It's a horrible way to go with the old syphilitic madness. I don't really know that much about what even the effects of syphilis are, but I don't imagine they would be nice. A lot of going mental, I guess. So I've talked a bit about existentialism. I've done some couple of that stuff. I'm just going to try. Those pneumatics. That's the one I was talking about before. That's the Peter Stolstead. I did a book review on this actually a while ago, and I actually might want to explore it again. It's very much a book that takes a lot of time, and it's very contemporary as well. So these are fresh ideas. It's on Psychedelic Press. It reminds me of Deleuze and Guattaro, actually, who I'll mention now as well, just because I'm going to take off in that direction, I guess. Deleuze and Guattaro were both considered postmodernists. I'll get the book Anti-Oedipus, and they did the 10,000 Plateaus as well. So this touches on, it's like cross-disciplinary, so it touches on so many different areas of study, from psychoanalysis to Marx to queer and gender theory, sexuality and sexual politics, feminism, networks. A lot of it has to do with computing. A lot of it, like the thing I found interesting about this book, and the thing that actually got me into it, is the fact that it kind of talks in almost a technological language about sex, life, death, repression, the kind of the Oedipal complex, but then how the whole point of this book is kind of getting rid of the power of Oedipus, the idea of the castrating female figure. That's what this whole book's about. It's basically getting rid of that and kind of let's go forward into something more interesting. It kind of talks about. I need to read this again. Actually, it is actually an exciting ride. It is sometimes just a crazy trip. I mean, when they're talking about, like it's all about the flows of breast, the flows of breast milk, the flows of a lot of it's all about this kind of got this language of matter to it, and quite almost like vilely kind of like angry tone to the text as well. But that's quite like it as well. So yeah, I just can read it. Let's just see where I am. I'll read where I left it. The inscription is reservanti when it is no longer enacted or reacted to. When the deterritorialized sign becomes a signifier, a formidable quality of reaction passes into a latent state. All the resonance and all the retention change in volume and time, that after the event. Vengeance and resentiment, not the beginning of justice to be sure, but it's becoming in its destiny the empirical formation of, as Nietzsche analyses it. And according to his prophecy, wouldn't the state itself be the dog which wants to die? That's not the best. That doesn't kind of give you even a good impression of what it's like. But that's worth reading. The Losing Gator around Oedipus. 10,000 Plateaus as well, probably. And that's, I mean, like I said, that's not really considered existential, I don't believe, even, but it's certainly, I've just certainly prompted to think of that. I've got the Atrocity exhibition there, but I don't know if that's really considered existential. I guess it is on some level. It's more surreal, more of a work of surrealism, I suppose. Yeah, I would say so. What else can I talk about? Sartre. No, we can't really talk about existentialism without Sartre. And Sartre is actually someone I've approached in his writing, but never really understood, I guess. Maybe I need to read more of it, but I can remember reading Being in Nothing or Being in Time. It was when I was 15 or 16 years old. Yeah, so like I used to pick up a lot of these philosophy kind of 10 minutes kind of like books back in the day from the library. So I read a bit on a really good comic book. I wish I could remember what it was called, which just had existentialist philosophers just having conversations to find ideas. A lot of it was very difficult for me to take in as a 15-year-old. Didn't really get what they were talking about because I was 15, I guess. But yeah, Sartre talks about emptiness a lot. That's one of the core things in his work that he deals with is the idea of emptiness, of this void in the self, and how does one nausea as well. Nausea is a key component. The idea of feeling a nausea at life, a kind of groan at life. His famous saying, "Hell is other people," which I fundamentally disagree. I think he's probably made that to make a philosophical point, but I don't really like that as an idea. Hell is other people. I mean, hell, you get out of hell through other people. I think, in my view, that's how you get out of hell. I mean, you have to, obviously you've got to get yourself out first, but other people help you out on the way. That's what I think is so I think, but I can kind of understand it in a more broader sense, in the sense that you've got your chattering classes, you've kind of got other people's expectations you're always trying to live up to, you've got people's idea of what you are to live up to all the time, and then even Nietzsche talks about how there's, in the eternal return, there's always life unlived. There's always, we've all had it, we've all had fantasies or daydreams or things we've wanted to do, but some parts of our life will remain unlived forever, for infinity. So I don't know, say you like saw a girl in a bar or something you really liked, and you had a conversation, and then you never got a number, and you're never going to see her again ever. That would be a regret, and that's what regret is, I guess. And that's a pretty obvious example. Let's try and do something a bit more in depth. What if you had something you really were focused on and wanted to do in life, but because of institutional repression or whatever, you couldn't do it, I suppose. I mean, what if you I'm trying to think of another. But that's basically the idea, is just that there is unlived life in everything that we do. There's always going to be a part of your life which remains unlived. Not always for the worse. I mean, I know myself enough to know that I don't particularly want to go out and start murdering people, for example, or being a violent offender or some kind of violent person. I know that because it's something that, though it lives on me deep in the R complex, I guess, in my brain, it's something I would never ever want to do. I have aversion to violence against people. I think violence lives in me and it lives in everybody, but how you actually deal with it and explore and get rid of that violence is a big question. It's more of a question for men, I suppose, in many ways, but women have violence in them as well, I suppose. That'd be an interesting conversation to have with a woman, actually. What is the violence that lives in a woman? I guess, in a way, women are the bearers of violence, in some ways. By which I mean, they are literally vessels for birth, which is in itself a violent act, and I'm never going to have to experience that level of pain, but women go through a lot of pain during childbirth. Well, up until more recent medical technology, death was a very, very, very real possibility during birth. And I guess that's how violence in the collective human unconscious bears itself out, is through the vessel of the female womb, I suppose, essentially. I'm almost talking like Andy Oedipus now, but this is kind of going into a more interesting territory, so that's good territory as well. These books influence you. They get under your skin. Anti-Oedipus, I could feel it under my skin for 2 years after reading it, at least. And that's not even an overstatement. I could literally... The books and the ideas in Anti-Oedipus were popping up in my life again and again for years after I read it. I mean, like I said, that's not even an overstatement. That is honestly how it worked for me. And that is existentialism. It gets under your skin, and then the more you actually live life, the more you realise the validity of its truth, which is that, yeah, there isn't some high answer coming from the Godhead above or anything. All there is here and now, and you've got to make your life, not somebody else's version of a life lived. You've got to make it yours, and that's the real strength that one can get from existentialism. It is a person-centered philosophy. It's almost a humanistic philosophy, I suppose. In some respects, you could argue very much so it is. It's a call to develop yourself and be yourself in a world that's constantly trying to change you into something else. It's that creative free spirit of the imagination, which a lot of people run away from and just, they kind of forget about that they've got it. So if for a new child, you're kind of open and aware and kind of connected to everything very deeply. A lot of adults lose that when they get older. I haven't, but it doesn't make life always easy having that, being a bit of a child, I suppose, like in terms of the mind. But you can't really, I can't change myself, and I don't think I want to really. I don't have a choice. I don't want to change myself. I'm perfectly comfortable with myself. There's a few things I need to do. I need to stop smoking and stop consuming so much crap into our body and detoxify a bit, but who doesn't need to change something at least once in life, or 2 or 3 times? So yeah, I've almost talked for 20 minutes now. Hopefully you've got a kind of feeling for what existentialism is. As you can probably tell, it's a kind of method, because I've gone off the established course quite a lot of times and just started talking about myself and how I perceive myself, which is essentially the existentialist trick or unveiling, I suppose. So that's why I'm doing that, demonstrating that it is a stream of thoughts, yourself, and you can even relate all existentialism to nihilism, existentialism. Cogito ergo sum, which is I think therefore I am, which Descartes' most famous saying, which is all about how the mind, the way that you realise that you are alive, at least on the most fundamental level, is that you're aware of your own thoughts, and you can kind of relay your own thoughts back to yourself. It's like a kind of man-machine idea in a way, early version of. But that kind of feels like a nice place to end this philosophy video, funny philosophy. There's not been much humour, but I've tried to put a bit of humour in there where I have been able to, so I hope you enjoyed that. Keep thinking freely, keep feeling freely, and onwards and upwards with life, existentially or nihilistically, if you're so inclined, or whichever.